have access to a spirit, a strength that enlarges and empowers you. Even better, you don't need to wait for the next big movement. You can heal the world. It's time for governance by grace. Welcome to Gracearchy with Jim Babka. What Jim is about to do might shock you. I have a sense of what's coming, and even I'm a little bit scandalized by it. Jim has repeatedly cautioned us about the twin dangers of rushing to judgment before the facts are in and blaming groups for the acts of individuals. But we're about to show you there are people trying to manipulate you into throwing those grace-based rules to the wind. They claim the stakes are too high. Maybe it's time to hold up a mirror. Perhaps blame is more fun to give than to receive. Jim, let's get into it.
So the breaking news is that a judge by the name of Goodstein has had, Diane is her first name, has had her house ostensibly blown up. I mean, it does from the pictures appear and from the way that the family had to rush out of the house. They had to jump out of a window.
Yeah, and it's a
1-year-old man.
3-story house. It's big.
Yeah. There were injuries. They had to jump out. The judge was not in the home. She was out walking or running at the time. And it's reasonable to assume from the pictures, from the type of fire that started very suddenly, that this was an explosion and probably a case of arson, right?
Well, you could assume that, but we, of course, have no information yet except pictures. Why
should we let that stop us?
Exactly.
I say this because that's the tone or tenor of these days. Did MAGA blow up the judge's house? And
January 6th, was there an insurrection in the Capitol?
The fact of the matter is that if you are going to rely on modern, the rhetoric that's going on through the right now,
yep,
since Charlie Kirk, there's collective blame. An entire movement's to blame for the behavior of one individual or two individuals or a handful of individuals standing on a corner somewhere.
Or perhaps an entire mistake, and this was, a gas leak that caught fire.
No, it can't be, because our opponents are to blame.
Jim, I love you, but this logic just makes my mind spin.
I hate this, and it's time to hold up a mirror to these two respective sides. It's time to talk about how they're behaving right now, because they're headed in a bad direction that's bad for all of us. And so I just want to, we're not going to allow today, because this is how they're talking to each other. The point is for them to see and for everyone else to see. And we're going to explain how we're able to see all of this and what the way out of it is. But before we get there, we can't just let up on the gas yet, Bill. No pun intended.
I'm with you on this.
MAGA blew up the judge's house.
That's the gas.
We have to insist that that's the case so that we can make the following points. So there's a $1.5 million home, family forced to jump out. Now, Judge Goodstein ruled on a controversial case as to whether or not her state should hand over sensitive voter data registration documents to the government at the Trump administration's request.
Right. And let's be clear, they wanted these documents handed over so that they could prove that they won, instead of what actually happened, according to history, that they lost.
So they had requested that they turn over the personal data of more than 3.3 million voters, names, address, birthdays, driver's license numbers, and the last 4 digits of their social security numbers, which of course we know would have been kept in a nice, tight, confined place where it never would have leaked out to the public domain, because the government always protects data when it has it. Always. Now,
and Doge can make sure of that for all of us. So
there's no Doge anymore. Come on. So I'm looking at this case and I'm saying, well, based on the current modern filter where we blame everybody collectively, it has to be MAGA that blew up her house. She had a case in front. She didn't rule with the Trump administration. So, they stoked people to attack. And where would I get such an idea? Where would I get such a far-fetched idea?
Gosh, Jim, hasn't this been going on since the ever.
Yeah, I think actually it's a lot worse of late, and I think it got dialed up after Charlie Kirk. I think we've got dialed up to another level. I'm going to talk more about how I come at this in just a second, but I want to start off with a clip. So I'm going to start off with a clip from the right because there's a prominent figure. His name's Nick Freitas, who has been out doing a series of videos saying he's had enough. It's over. It's war. It's time to speak out and say exactly what is going on, and we have to win, and we will defeat you. And so here's his set. Here's his podcast team having a discussion about Governor Newsom and a tweet Governor Newsom put out. We'll use their take as our guide.
And his staff know exactly what they're doing when they're doing this, considering that Charlie Kirk was shot and killed for the fake crime of being a fascist.
Yeah, Governor Newsom press office. Stephen Miller is a fascist in all caps.
Yeah, I wonder what he's trying to do there.
He's signaling to his pets to go out and kill somebody.
Yeah, so here's what he's doing. Here's what he's doing. He is saying, abdicate in our favor and do what we want, which is to destroy you, or we will sick our party's paramilitary wing out and put a hit on you to kill you. That's what he's saying. Do what we want, or we will let loose the paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party to kill you. That is what this means.
So the Democratic Party has a paramilitary wing now?
We're going to get to that in a second. Yes, they do. We're going to get to that in a second. But this clip is basically laying down a gauntlet. And it's suggesting that I want to make clear. So not everybody watches this. So if you didn't see what we just put up on the screen, it was a tweet that said Stephen Miller is a fascist. Leaving aside the factual truth of that statement, the way that they just chose, you just heard it, that they chose to interpret that is they were trying to incite, that's an attempt by the governor, a mainstream Democratic governor. That's an attempt by that Democratic governor to incite violence against Stephen Miller and his ilk. That's what that's about. You call him a fascist. What you're really doing, it's a whistle that's designed to get people who don't really have control. I mean, they're almost bots. They can't think for themselves. And they are now going to come out of the woodwork and begin attacking. That's the rules of the game. I want to be clear. I'm not setting the rules here. When I say MAGA blew up the judge's house, I'm playing by the exact set of rules that you just heard laid out on that show. That's the rules that we're following here.
I understand.
Okay. All right.
And as rules go, I mean, they might be rules, but they are just batshit crazy.
All right. Stephen Miller. We've got a tweet from him. Since he's the guy that they targeted, we have a tweet from him. He provides this tweet. He tweets quite a bit, several times a day. He says, legal insurrection. The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, not an Oregon judge. Portland and Oregon law enforcement have refused to aid ICE officers facing relentless terrorist assaults. And they're not providing law enforcement.
Stop. Time out. Mr. Miller, where are these relentless terrorist assaults and threats to life?
No, you don't understand. See, you keep going into this realm where you want to be reasonable, you want to be rational, you want to attribute blame to where it belongs for whatever behavior that you're seeing here. But that's not the rules. The rules have been laid out here for the game. So if I say legal insurrection, that's judges. That's a word to go out and blow up the homes of judges, or shoot them, or do something else. If I say terrorist assault, that means that we can do anything, including violate the Constitution, because the people who are exercising any form of First Amendment right are terrorists. If they organize to oppose the policy, they're terrorists.
It makes sense now. Yeah.
In front of them in controversy, and they rule on it, they are terrorists. Okay.
That executive order from a few weeks ago that said basically anybody who doesn't think like we are is now Antifa.
Fascists, terrorists. Yes. Okay. So let's talk about Antifa for a second. You asked a moment ago about paramilitary organizations. So in a previous time, not that long ago, in a word that begins with N that we will not use here, Bill, we won't use that word, but the people that were affiliated with that cause in Europe wore brown shirts. And a group of other people who were communists their color was more black, right? So the idea here is that each party has a program for get out the vote and for suppressing the vote. And like prison gangs, these will walk around with clubs, maybe guns, God knows what else, looking to disrupt and distribute and destroy the system. Now, I don't know how bad the Antifa problem is for real. I'm nervous to see that the government is, that the president of the United States is talking about targeting what could potentially be American citizens for simple expression rather than actual criminal acts. To me, a criminal act requires an identifiable victim. We can assign a property damage number to the action that occurred here. I do not believe thought can be criminalized. I don't even believe that Stephen Miller's thought can be criminalized here. Okay, even though he's a government official, let alone Nick Freitas. Like, I don't believe in his podcast. I don't believe that these acts can be criminalized. You say something, you use the First Amendment, you express yourself, whether you're using your free speech or your free press or your free association or your right to assemble. You're using these rights to be able to express yourself. Those are not crimes. They cannot be. We cannot say that words are violence because violence is violence.
Well, Jim, the President of the United States just basically called out the armed services against anyone who is, quote, anti-Christian.
That is a crime in the making, and that's a violation of the Constitution. And there are processes we're going to need to go through to deal with this. But I want to make clear this point that where we're headed, and there's already the little remnants of it, whether it's Antifa or the Proud Boys, there's already the little elements of it. There is the coming paramilitary of political movements. There will be people beginning to organize and engage in violence on purpose. There will be people who will be agent provocateurs that will organize and use violence in to make the other side look bad. There is an escalation factor that's in play here.
It's coming from Stephen Miller and from Trump himself and from all of their henchmen that are out there.
People that are in this stuff, I don't care about them. I want to be clear. I'm not appealing to them right now. They're not going to listen to little old me. But the people who have a chance to hear and digest what we're going to share here in a moment will have heard, will have a chance. What we would like to do is open eyes to what's really going on here and offer a pathway out, because this way only is going to ratchet up and lead to bloodshed. That's it. It's that simple.
Already is.
It is, and it will get, we haven't seen anything yet.
Yep.
We had a chance. We had a choice that could have been made. What happened with Charlie Kirk was a tragedy. It was wrong. There's a chance at that moment to say, okay, that's it. That's the final straw. And in fact, if you're a true friend of Charlie's, then what you do is you say, like his wife did, I forgive. And then you go back to trying to discuss issues.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with Charlie. There's a lot of people who don't agree with Charlie. I disagree with Charlie on several things.
Oh, yeah. He's despicable on several issues. LGBTQ stuff.
Still talking. It's still talk.
It's still talk. Yeah.
And talk is where it's at. That is a big part of the equation that we've been trying to lay out here.
So what's the middle way here? I mean, the left and right are just going to go at it like cats and dogs. What's the way forward, the graceful way?
It turns out it's narrow. Few find it. And it involves a cross. So I want to give a shout out to Michael Hardin, because in throwing this outline together, his something he wrote was actually tremendously helpful to me. The 1990s were a time of peace. They were a time of hope. What had happened was that we had been fighting a long Cold War. And we can't get in every single detail of everything that happened on every day during the 1990s and say, oh, some peace that was. The Cold War had ended, and the defense establishment realized it was going to need to wind down. And a lot of the people who were Cold Warriors said, okay, that's it. Let's get back to our ideals. Let's live by our values and virtues that we wanted to live by all along. The war is over. And there were some people that to them, this was insufferable. They wanted another war. In fact, they wanted to rearrange the Middle East in their image, amongst other things. They had plans. And so they sat down and they wrote a letter and they said, we might need another 9/11 event to catalyze people, to get people back off the sidelines and into things. And another Pearl Harbor event. They said we need another Pearl Harbor event. And 9/11 came along. And 9/11 changes everything. The country changes. We go from a situation where we're full of hope, we're full of, just opportunity. I sit down. I was involved in a presidential campaign in the year 2000, and my candidate Harry Brown, his last book was a collection of his sound bites. And I read those sound bites today, and the things that we were trying to accomplish and the hopeful attitude with which we were attempting to accomplish them has not rhymed with the times ever since 9/11.
Yeah, it's true, Jim.
Things changed. There's a thought pattern out there that somehow or other people are going to be more motivated to seek freedom if they're under stress, if they're fearful, if they are under anxiety, that if they're squeezing them is the way that's going to motivate them to overthrow the shackles of tyranny. But the exact opposite is true. Again and again, we see this in history. And there's been this ratcheting up that's been going on this entire time. The dynamic has kept worsening. Whether it's the question of heroin, which is largely a byproduct, it is in part, I don't want to say largely, a byproduct of our involvement in Afghanistan. It's come home to our streets. Or a financial crisis where, this whole establishment was spending money that it didn't have, right? And they kept ramping up. We went from having it's torture to arrive at this, but a balanced budget to the massive, massive debt that we have right now.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much corrosion that's occurred since 9/11. And we've been increasingly defined by fear, division, and anxiety. So I think this brings up a topic we've talked about before in a more clinical way, but today I want to really kind of apply it, and that is the scapegoat mechanism.
Sure, yes.
So Rene Girard, and we will put a couple of episodes in the show notes, including the one we consider our most important episode. And he suggested that there's a process that is basically the founding of religion and the state, and it involves a scapegoat. So here's how the mechanism works. I'm going to have to hit this very quickly. There's mimetic desire. We see and imitate the desire of others. That's where we get our desires. Our desires don't come organically, just arriving up inside of us. They are not individual. They are interdividual. We see and know what to, and by the way, there's positive things to this too. We're not going to get into this too deeply today, but there's some positive things about this. But there's also negative, and that is one of the things that can happen is a rivalry can occur between two parties who want the same thing, and only one of them can have it.
So is this is not the difference of opinion of how to get there, right? This is two different, you said they want the same thing.
They want the same thing.
But only one can have it. That's a different difference than we both have two different ways of getting.
Like the ring of power. Okay, they want the ring of power.
They want the ring of power.
All right. So rivalry escalates into chaos to the point that everyone's blaming everyone. They're starting to come in and just beat up against each other, right? It gets really messy. And not everybody, when you say everyone, that's an awfully, that's a broad word. There are some people who are sitting back going, this really stinks. And even some of the people in the conflict are starting to go, whoa, this is really hitting a little too close to home. How do we get out of this? So the solution, the perennial solution, going back thousands and thousands of years in human history, has been to find a scapegoat.
Yeah, blame somebody or something or some government or whatever.
And the purpose is to sacrifice that scapegoat so that we can restore peace. So the group, and they do this unconsciously, they don't recognize what they're doing. They think that the victim is truly to blame. They really, in their hearts, believe that they can settle on this scapegoat, they can blame and eliminate it. And then they achieve a temporary unity as a result of this. The scapegoat has been expelled or killed, so social order returns. And rituals begin to come up so that we reinforce the memory of this thing. So in ancient societies, this was highly ritualized as an obvious sacrifice. But as time has gone on, we've done this through media, politics, and social punishment. And yes, sometimes murder and assassination and even war. But we think we can blame, and then we have somebody that we can hold responsible. Now, the problem in our current situation right now is that both left and right Christians, I just said Christians on purpose, left and right professing Christians have embraced sacrificial logic. And they blame and retribution and violence has followed. They've picked teams. And I'm telling you, you can almost go to a church and you could find again and again and again on the left, on the right, people saying, there's the problem. We can blame them, make them the scapegoat. Now, eventually, we're going to have to come to some agreement in this mechanism I just described as to one solitary thing that both sides can agree on, we have to destroy. But for right now, they're not in agreement yet. So they're trying very hard to make sure that they can make the case that their preferred scapegoat should be the victim. Both sides should be to blame. Excuse me. Both sides see themselves as the victim. Both sides. Both sides believe they're righteous and good and pure, and their cause is just, and it's the other side that is terribly bad. If I say the name Donald Trump, please recognize Donald Trump does rise to the level of the left's scapegoat. He is completely to blame for everything that is wrong, 100%. If we just got rid of him, we wouldn't have any of this problem. Everything could go back to
That's
normal.
Convenient because he's like one person. But
yes.
If you flip that script and look at the executive order that I referred to earlier, it blames everybody except MAGA.
So each side believes the other's the real danger and they have to remove, but the scapegoat mechanism only works when everyone can agree on the scapegoat, and we don't have that agreement right now. So more resentment will lead to more bloodshed and less peace. That's the pathway that we're on here.
So how is distrust
escalating?
How's institutional distrust play into this? I mean, since 9/11, we had the Patriot Act. That just put a lot of us over the edge. I think it's moving us in a direction, and I suspect that you're thinking the same.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is breaking down. I think that we may actually be at there's this real huge temptation. I want to avoid it. To think that you live in the most interesting of times, that everything is historical and epic and new. And Ecclesiastes says there's nothing new under the sun, right? So there are things that are happening right now that rhyme with previous generations. You can see some of the 1930s happening right in front of us right now.
Yep.
You can see some of the 1960s happening in front of us right now. Okay. So let's not suggest that any of this is brand new yet. Okay.
It's new to America for the first time. We haven't done Hitler's Germany in America yet.
Okay. All right. No, I'm glad that you said that because I'm going to refute it.
This show is brought to you by the Zero Aggression Project. Zap newsletter subscribers get alerts when each episode is released. The Zap website is also the pathway by which you can contact us by email and support the show. This program operates thanks to tax-deductible Zap contributions, and we appreciate your support. So, zap the state, and have a nice day.
Number one, we had a civil war. And 600,000 plus, 800,000 plus people were killed in that. I don't know the exact number, but it was a massive destruction that was tremendously harmful. Lots of people killed. So we have been in a worse position. Then in World War I, our government suspended free speech. And if you stood up to speak against the draft, you went to prison. Now, those charges ended up getting overturned. And in World War II, there was a race of people who were interred in camps because they were potentially an alien threat. So I don't want to pretend like this is all brand new. We had political assassinations in the 1960s, culminating in the space of just about 2 months' time between MLK and RFK Sr., right?
Yeah.
So we've been through some of this stuff before. It's not necessarily new, but who wants to relive the 1930s and 40s? I know I don't, right? I don't want that to be, even though I believe we'll emerge past this, I don't want to go through anything like it over again because some people can't control their emotions and nobody's standing up to say, wait a minute, this is the wrong thing to do. So here's the key thing about the scapegoat. Here's what I want everybody to realize. The scapegoat isn't ultimately guilty. The scapegoat may have contributed. The scapegoat might be a participant. The scapegoat might be somebody you don't like, but they don't have ultimate culpability.
Back in the day, that was the fact. If the scapegoat was innocent, it had to be innocent. Well, of course, it was an animal back then.
For quite some time. So if you understand that there needs to be some kind of sacrifice, but yet everybody's blame, the person that they're blaming, the group that they're blaming, the entity that they're blaming is not actually ultimately culpable. That's step one in beginning to walk down a new path of grace. And it's step one in going down a path to peace. So nationalism in particular is rooted in the idea that there is a sacred enemy at the gate. There is somebody looking to penetrate our inner body as a nation who spoils it and they ruin it, and we have to purify ourselves by getting rid of it. Yep. Now, I don't want to make it seem like they're unique or special here, because we've been getting told by the left that if we don't worship their deities and gods, if we don't worship those, we were going to have a different set of problems.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So there's always this attempt to cleanse and make things almost religiously pure.
You can hear it in the language, the woke language or DEI or all the stuff that's coming from the right now about national pride and,
Right. Yes. Oh, definitely. So a flag is a totem. It's a venerated religious object.
It's a false god, Jim. Let's go further.
And
people worship the flag like they're worshiping God.
And people will kill over it. Okay. So there is like this sense of a sacred enemy. And so there's an attempt even to elevate the actual power. So it's not just that the scapegoat isn't ultimately culpable. They're made to seem as if they are more powerful than they actually are. Every time you say out loud, well, they issued another threat because what they want to do is send their minions to kill us, you're giving them more power than that whole thought more power than it deserves. And you're increasing the odds it'll happen.
That's so key. Say that again.
You're speaking into existence the very thing that you claim to oppose. You're making it more likely that it will happen. Now, it may not happen the way you want it to. What may happen is that your side may end up going up and blowing up a judge's house.
Yep.
And then that's going to escalate into yet something else. So,
good people, you can look around the room and just say, okay, there are people in here who are Republican. Are they to blame for a judge's house that got blown up? These are good people. They're not directly to blame.
Almost everybody is outside of this fight right now. The truth of the matter is that there are some really, really shrill, loud voices who are trying to expand their ranks through fear, and they're stroking anxiety, and they're making it seem as if you have to pick a side. Bill, this language is all over the internet right now. If you have said out loud, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, silence is violence, you're part of the problem. If you have said, oh, I have 68 mutual friends with this butthead, and you shouldn't be friends with this person, you should isolate them, you're part of the problem. You're seeking to escalate violence, and you're saying that if you don't belong to my particular prison gang, you're going to stand alone. I'm not going to stand with you. I can't associate with somebody who would be a social media friend, small f, by the way. It's not like it's a capital F friendship.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I have people that I have in my circle. I won't do this, by the way. If it has already been done to me, but it's only been done twice. Both times I wrote to the person who did it, and I said publicly, if you need to defriend me, I understand, but I'm not going to do it. Okay. You're not going to be making those decisions for me. I have people that I disagree with vehemently. My being associated with them on social media has nothing to do with my lockstep, I use that term on purpose, with my lockstep agreement with their views. Some of their views are abhorrent, and that might be the reason I'm still associated with them. Maybe I want to see what they're writing. I have one guy that I could think of a few actually, but I have one guy in particular that's been really on a tear lately. I don't like the stuff he posts at all, but I want to see it. I want to know what's being written. Having it come through my timeline, I've got a sense of what that is. Or I can go look. I've got another guy. I've got him on kind of grayed out. He doesn't show up in my feed by surprise, right? I have to go to his page. I have to steel myself a little bit to go read what he wrote because some of it's so bad. But I want to know what he's saying. And by the way, the two people I'm just thinking about in my head just now, they're on the opposite sides. These two people would have nothing in common or agreement with one another.
With each other, right.
I am looking to have lemonade with people. In fact, I'll go one step further and say to you, they benefit from being acquaintances with me. By being friends with me, I can step into their echo chambers and they're better for it. Okay. So I'm not taking that away and you ain't taking it away either. But if you force me to make a choice, you're gone. Like I won't throw you out. I'll just say, hey, I'm going to miss you. I really don't want to lose you.
Yeah.
And that's what I wrote. I don't want to lose you. Now, both times people are like, no, it's okay. It's okay. I just don't understand how you could be whatever, but they didn't actually mean it. Thank God. Okay. But is this the direction we're going to keep going? We're going to make sure that we have no one can associate with the sacred enemy. We're making them more powerful than they actually are.
Well, we're dangling this sacred stuff around. So, because there is so much religious fervor, and you can imply that however you want, around fundamentalism and nationalism, and now that is sort of leaching out into other aspects of people like Steve Miller's post that we showed. What is the call here to spiritual seekers who really want to approach this from a standpoint that is not that?
I think the gospel has been mishandled, and that the church, the people that are sitting in the pews, have participated in an old-time religion that is full of sacrificial violence. It's an angry God. They're sinners in the hands of an angry God, when the truth all along has been that it's God was in the hands of angry sinners. The cross was a great revealing that the scapegoat was innocent. The scapegoat was innocent.
And I've said this before, but that's supposed to be for all time, right? So that model of love one another.
Final sacrifice.
We're done. Like, we're all in this together now, and we're all loved. We're all accepted and forgiven. So what's the object here? How do we get along, Jim?
I think that however small it may seem to you right now, because it's not loud, it's not ostentatious, it's not rolling through your feed, it's not showing up on Twitter or on the evening news. I think that the Holy Spirit is revealing the nonviolent nature of God to more and more people every day. And I think Jesus Christ, and this is how Michael Hardin referred to it, but I love this phrase, is the true human. He's not a sacrifice demanding deity, and he's modeled a new way to proceed that involves taking up your cross and following him. What I'm about to describe here is actually very, very different from the darkness to which the churches, by and large, are hanging on to, which is a perpetual sacrificial reading. It's not a gospel, which means good news. It's bad news. It's more violence. It's more war. It's more death. It's more judgment. So, and I want to be clear, because this is a big issue for you. You've raised this several times. There's a theologian by the name of Karl Rahner from 20th century, one of the major figures in theology. And he proposed that people who have never heard of Christianity or Jesus Christ, but have lived a life of sincere moral integrity and openness to truth, may still be saved through Christ. Now, I want to put emphasis on the fact that he said through Christ. He didn't say there was another way. He just said Christ finds these people too. I'll say this another way that people can, by the way, he called this the anonymous Christian. The anonymous Christian. And I'll say this another way. I have met some people who claim Christian faith who aren't very Christian. There's no real evidence that that's the case. Now, I'm not in a position to judge. That's not my call. That's way above my pay grade. Okay. I'll just take them at their word. But man, there's a lot of work left to be done there. It's pretty obvious. Whereas I've met some other people where I've looked at them and been, man, they seem pretty Christian, even though they are overtly not religious or church participating people.
Yeah, you're talking about Duns.
Well, for one thing, but there could even be people who are atheists who are
true. Yeah.
really have a pretty sincere moral code. Okay. So what I want to say right now is that the key thing that is being overlooked, that if you can see this, if you can see the humanity of your enemy, you have begun to understand the gospel. Now, I don't want to go any further than that. I don't want to make any claims about heaven or hell, saved or unsaved. I don't want to do that. I just want to say that for the purpose of the discussion that we have here, being able to see humanity in the people that you were told are your enemy is the first step. I don't want to stop there. I don't want to stop there. There is two lies that are being told within our churches. There's the liberal lie and the conservative lie. You could call one liberal optimism and the other conservative legalism. People are basically good. Sin is outdated. That's what the left says. Anything goes. And then on the right, people are basically evil and we must control them. We have traditions and rules and institutions that are designed to mold the human person. And both have misread this gospel that I'm talking about. Both progressive and fundamentalist churches are worshiping a false Jesus, a Jesus of their own making. Jesus is this progressive do-gooder who wants to tax the rich so that he can feed the poor. They've mistaken him for Robin Hood somewhere along the way, I guess. I don't know. Even Robin Hood didn't do that, by the way. But, and then on the right, he is some kind of, he's got some kind of ledger where he's checking about where you put your private parts.
Making a list, checking it twice.
And so then what ends up happening in this environment is that everyone claims victimhood. Everybody is put upon. Everybody's values are being crushed and destroyed. Nobody sees and appreciates morality like me. I am the most moral person, and all the people who disagree with me are evil. And some of them, by the way, deserve to die. Maybe a lot of them deserve to die. Maybe some should be sent to re-education camps. I don't know what's the end of all of this, but they see themselves as the victim. So let's get to the next level. We said being able to see the humanity of your enemy is the first step. The second step is being able to admit that you are the persecutor. That it's you that wants to destroy. That it's you that wants to go and fight and take up the claim of justice. Vengeance is yours. You will repay. You will make things right. I can cancel this person out. I can shut this person down. I can cause them to lose their job. I can take away their power. I can even kill them if that's what I need to do. I've already committed to murder in my heart. Why not go the next distance? We throw around language so cavalierly. I was thinking about this when we did the Charlie Kirk episode, that while I believe words are not violence, it's certainly the case that words have a way of cutting us emotionally that sometimes a physical thing can't do. I don't know what your experience, your life experience has been. A lot of guys have been in a situation at least once where they had their butt kicked, right? You got beat up. You got in a fight. And honestly, that's not that big a deal. Like, unless you ended up injured, some kind of permanent injury, right? It's not something I recommend. It's not something that should happen. And most of us, we go through it when we're in our youth. It's not something we carry into adulthood. But there are words that were used against you that stuck with you for a lot longer and hurt a lot worse.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the tongue isn't a weapon. I'm saying it's not violence that the state can deal with. The state has no tools. No government has any tools. No amount of vengeance has any tools to deal with that. The tools that you use to deal with the damage that the tongue does are spiritual in nature. They're all spiritual.
Yeah, and the injury is a moral one.
Yes. And one of the things that you might have to do, the Greek language has 3 different words for the word love.
Right,
we have one.
Yep.
Okay. Forgiveness is a word that has a similar problem. If I say forgive, people like, well, they should still face judgment. Well, maybe they should, and that it's still possible to forgive and for that to happen. Like, there's this sense in which forgiveness is more than one thing. But one of the things it often is, or the very first thing it actually is a release. Something bad has been done to me. I spoke in an earlier episode about the young man who was responsible for my mother's death, who was driving drunk that night. And the process that I went through in terms of like how I went about forgiving, like how I came to feel sorry and see the humanity and the tragedy, by the way, that became of that life that is no longer here, died young. And I felt sorrow for this human being to arrive at that point. I'm not holding this example up to say, look at me and how good I am. I'm holding this example up to say, this is the kind of thinking that we need to be able to apply in the here and now. We have to be able to see the humanity, and we have to recognize that we are the persecutor. That's the essential call. That's when you sit down and have communion or the Eucharist. You're being asked to set aside your right to judge, your right to punish, your right to blame, because you can't actually eat a communion with your brother if you're harboring murder in your heart, if you want him destroyed because of what he has that you cannot have. If that's where you're at, then that communion isn't possible. And that's kind of even from an anonymous Christian point of view, right? That's where we have to arrive at. Those are the conditions that we need to have. This all has to move, and this is nearly my last point, beyond protests.
Yes. Yes, the protest is great, but I mean, you've talked about angry mobs, how much they accomplish.
Yeah, real justice comes through Christ. So this activism, most of the assembly, people are encouraged to be angry. They're encouraged to be mad. They're encouraged to bring those emotions to motivate them to come out into the field and have a protest, an organized demonstration. And this activism is rooted in resentment that deepens and deepens and deepens. And both sides dig in their heels deeper and deeper and deeper. We have to reach a point where we're able to talk to each other. And I want to go one step further. I believe that being small L libertarian is a necessary part of this, because what we're fighting over here is power over another. And we're willing to use initiated force, violence, and theft to demand that other people live their lives according to our values, our aesthetics, our values, our virtues. We're insisting that that's what's going to happen. And we have to get to a point where we're laying down arms. I look forward to an ultimate state. It's laid out at the end of the Bible where the lion lays down with the lamb. That happens after we give up the ability to judge, persecute others, and sacrifice them to our cause.
So how do you deal with the, at least 2 and probably more readings of the book of Revelation? One that says only a few of us get to go and everybody else is, damned to hell. And the other vision of that says something completely different.
We have established from the very get-go here at this show that we have a couple of metaphysical priors. And the very first one is that we have the Imago Dei. We are made in the image of God. And this has important things to tell us about the value of every human being that we meet. And if we live up to that standard, if we recognize how important that standard is, it should transform our behavior in fairly radical ways. We should have a desire, for example, as we've talked about many times, to have lemonade with our enemy, to have a situation where we're able to sit down. We're not holding grudges. Instead, we're learning to listen. We are learning to hear. And so I think that is absolutely vital in this situation. I think we need less politics and more listening. I think we need less conflict machine and more voluntary interaction to solve problems together. And I think we have to learn to see the true humanity of others. And here's the challenge. This is going to be hard. It's literally going to be what I would call a prophetic witness. And by prophetic witness, I mean you're going to stand up and you're going to say, I'm not going to participate in the stoning of this particular person. I am not going to attack and judge them. I'm not going to separate from them. In fact, as you're getting ready to do this, I'm going to tell you you're in the wrong. Even if what you just saw them do was bad and you think they're culpable, I'm still going to say, I'm not joining you and you shouldn't do this either. At some point, the way that things begin to turn around and the spiral goes in the other direction to de-escalation is that someone says, enough, I'm not going to join and escalate this to the next level. Stephen Miller is not stopping that. A whole host of people are not stopping doing that. So if you've gotten this far in the episode, let's make something clear. I don't know who blew up the house or even if it was blown up. It is a tragedy for this family, regardless of how it happened. And if it was arson or explosives, it's wrong, period. In fact, if it turns out that it was a political actor, they alone are responsible. We've simply got to get off this escalation process.
And you know what?
The humanity of others.
You're so right on this. Yeah, like here I am, the yes man. But I know people, if they are watching a video of Trump and he stumbles, like going up the stairs, that becomes a huge, point for their day. They need to make sure that everybody knows that, yeah, our president's human, right? What 80-year-old, 79-year-old do you know who doesn't stumble once in a while?
Yeah, but see, they're just getting even for what was done to Biden. Like, that's what I'm saying. Right. It's just like this constant escalation.
Where's the humanity in that? And not a Trump supporter. In fact, I've been pretty, hateful. But you make the point, and it's so essential that we learn to allow ourselves our humanity, right? To give ourselves the grace of seeing each other as human beings first. It's hard. You're right. It's
really
hard.
Going on. That's what's really going on. And so I'm just going to tell you, I call it prophetic witness because I don't think you're going to find that everybody's going to be like, gee, Bill, I'm glad you told us that. Boy, I'm really happy that you.
I doubt anybody will. If that ever happens.
Like, if you really feel that way, go stand next to him while we throw the stones, right?
Right, exactly.
It'll be fine with us if it'll hit you too, because you're now part of the problem. Okay. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to do this canceling that people do to each other online. I'm sorry. Like, if somebody treats me rude and they won't be civil towards me, then I'll stop talking to them. But, until that point, a disagreement isn't necessarily enough.
Yep.
I got to hear them out.
Yeah. And oftentimes hearing them out results in it's the lemonade conversation. Like just asking can often reveal where the conversation needs to go. And it's usually not a personal conversation at that point.
I just recall, as we're going to bring this to a close, I just recall that Daryl Davis had a conversation where somebody said something pretty, rude to him. And he said, well, you realize you're talking about black people in general. And he said, you realize you're talking about me? And they went, no, you're different. He goes, well, how am I different? I'm black, right? I'm very black. Like, how am I different? Right. And it's that moment, that dawning. They said that in front of him because they didn't see him as the othering in that moment. And that's the bridge that begins to build across and begins to heal divides and allows people. I didn't say they all came into agreement, but it's time to lay down arms. And
yeah, it's not about agreement.
It's about ending the state. Because this is a central thing over which we're fighting. We are fighting over the ring.
Yeah. So we're walking down the street. Somebody comes up to us. It looks like somebody we might want to resist or protest against. We don't know. How do we greet that person?
To the best of your ability, try not to stay safe, but don't prejudge too much. Have some openness to trying to find out who that person is if they come in your life. Like, I got to be honest, I'm not like going out, like walking the streets, trying to find everybody that wants to pick a fight with me.
Oh no, they're coming for you, man. ICE is coming for me now. I'm
not doing that. But I'm saying that there are going to be opportunities where you have a chance to escalate the situation, or you have the chance to see the humanity and recognize that you don't want to be the persecutor and you want to de-escalate the situation. And even if you're not a particularly religious person, that is a Christian act. That is a Christ-like act. That's gospel.